Well, hello there. So in this video, we're going to take a look at practicing with the shutdown rule, and I'm actually going to show you why you should shut down if Mr. DARP here falls below the AVC. Now, in full disclosure, I totally took this practice problem from Jacob Clifford's video, and I think he does a fantastic job of explaining it. So I'd encourage you to actually watch that YouTube video, and he walks through this exact same problem. But I laid it out here in our problem set so we could do it in class as well. Now, we remember that if the shutdown rule says price is less than AVC, the firm should just shut down. But what if it didn't, right? What if it didn't? It chose to actually produce. So we're going to run through kind of a thought experiment of what should this firm do? Mr. DARP has fallen below AVC. We know they should shut down, but what happened if they didn't? So what's their profit maximizing quantity? Well, where does MR equal MC? That's at quantity 10. What's the total revenue at quantity 10? Well, we know that the price times quantity will tell us our answer here. At quantity 10, what's the price? Well, Mr. DARP tells us it's 5, so 5 times 10 is 50. Excuse me. At what quantity is TC, right? At that quantity, what is TC? So total cost would just be the ATC times the quantity. That's another way that we can figure out what the total cost is. And so we know the quantity is 10. What's the ATC at 10? All the way up here, 12. 12 times 10, that's 120. And so their total loss would be TR minus TC. That's 50 minus 120 is negative 70. So they're losing $70, right? They're losing $70. It would be from this area up here would actually be their loss if they operated. So it'd be that whole rectangle going all the way down to the Mr. DARP. Now, if they shut down, their loss is equal to their fixed cost. And we know that fixed cost is equal to the average fixed cost, that's what this says, times any quantity. If this firm shuts down, how much is its loss? How much is their fixed cost? So let's actually just pick the same quantity. We can use these numbers and say, well, going from here to here, the vertical distance between these two lines, we know that's the AFC. So that's why we learned it in the last unit. And then we can multiply that by any quantity and find actually what's the fixed cost. So we would say we've got this AFC, and the AFC is 12 minus 7, so that's 5, times any quantity, and in this case, that 5 occurs at quantity 10. So their fixed cost is $50 fixed cost. And so which one would you rather lose? Would you rather lose $50 or would you rather lose $70? Well, of course, the firm's rather going to lose $50. So they shut down, they lose the fixed cost of 50, which is less than if they operate, they lost equals 70. And so our explanation here with numbers would be they shut down, they lose fixed cost of 50. That's less than if they operate in a loss where they lose $70. So this is why actually the shutdown rule holds true, is that firms will close their doors and not operate with any variable inputs at all if Mr. DARP falls below AVC. Now the last part here is just going to be practice with long run equilibrium. So we're going to start with equilibrium and then show a shift. Again, it's just really practice with the graphs that we drew in the last video. So first part is going to be the market, demand, and supply. If you remember the doot-doots from last unit, right? Or last video, market, firm. It's always good to kind of label which one's the market and the firm, just in case. P1 and QM1. And again, I'm using M here to distinguish the market from the firm. We know this is the demand, the marginal revenue, and the price that the firm charges, and that's P sub 1. Marginal cost equals the firm's supply curve. And this is going to be the quantity that they produce initially. Now, this firm, we're going to say that they're going to be earning a profit. That's what our little prompt says. So we're not going to need an AVC. Remember, we only need the AVC if the firm's losing money. So we're going to slap a little ATC on here. ATC, that tells us we're in long-run equilibrium. So we have to start in that long-run equilibrium. We need the ATC to do that. But then the shift is going to happen. And the consumers are expecting the prices to rise soon, leading to higher demand and price. The firm earns a profit. And so we just shift the demand curve to the right. I'm going to use D2 here again, just so that we kind of distinguish QM2, bigger quantity, higher price. And then in the market, or sorry, that was the market, that's going to cause Mr. DARP to be higher, right? So D2 equals MR2, Mr. DARP 2 is higher. So Mr. DARP went up to P2. And now our new quantity MR equals MC, QF2, is occurring where MR equals the new marginal revenue curve. That's occurring here. So the firm's going to produce more units, and then we're going to compare price and ATC to find out their profit. So we go down from this new price, price 2, down to the ATC at QF2. We connect those, and then we go over, all the way over to the axis, and this little thin rectangle is actually our profit rectangle. So again, we're not including the bottom part of the ATC. Remember, we are not here. We're actually producing here, and we're hitting ATC at that kind of upper portion. It's a very common problem for students to actually go ahead and shade that in, or they don't make it clear that it doesn't include that. If it's too difficult for me to tell or a grader to tell, they're not going to give you credit. So you got to be really distinct that this profit rectangle doesn't go down to the old Mr. Darp. If you remember from the last video, I told you that Mr. Darp is dead to you. He's dead. He's gone. You shun him, right? Pretend like he doesn't even exist. That's actually a way to think about where that profit rectangle is going to be. Now let's take a look at the last one here, shade the loss. They're going to operate at a loss, so we do need an AVC for this one. So we're going to say demand and supply over MR equals demand equals the price, P sub 1, QM sub 1. Ooh, that marginal cost curve is slappy. QF1, we come down, hit its minimum, come back up again. Again, we're just starting in the long run, right? So all of that is to get us to our long run picture. And we know this is P1 as well. Now, the firm's going to have an AVC because it tells us they're earning a loss and they're going to operate. We need an AVC. Now, if it's telling me they're operating at a loss, I'm going to choose to make my AVC pretty far away from my ATC and then kind of come up and get closer. That's just going to make it easier for me to actually draw where my new Mr. Darp's going to be, because my Mr. Darp has to be in between the bottom of this AVC and this original P1. And so I'm just going to say maybe it's like right here, right? I know that Mr. Darp's going to be there. So I'm going to walk my way back over to this one and say, aha, that's where the demand needs to have decreased to. So I know, again, I showed you this in the last video where it's like kind of working backward a bit, but the original event is that the demand fell. And when the demand fell, it caused the price to fall in this market. That made the quantity in the market fall. That meant that Mr. Darp is lower, and that actually is the price here falling. That causes Mr. Darp to be a new lower value, right? So over here, a lower value. That's going to cause our new MR equals MC to occur at a smaller quantity. So decrease the quantity the firm produces. And here we're going to go from the price up to the ATC, from that Mr. Darp price, the new Mr. Darp, up to the ATC and over. And that's going to help us find our loss rectangle. Again, we're not going all the way down to that AVC. That would be if this firm shut down. If they shut down, that would be all the way down to that AVC point. But they're not doing that. We said they're operating at a loss. So it's going to be from this Mr. Darp up to that ATC value. And that's going to be our shaded loss area. Hopefully this helped you in terms of practice with the shutdown rule and a little bit of that graphing. I'll see you next time.